find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-504-8790. I'm here with spokesman John Wolf. So, John, tell everyone listening who should call right now.
Well, Maria, first off, thank you for having me here. It's always nice to answer the listeners' questions. Now, as far as who should call in, anyone who's been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, give us a call right now. 800-504-8790. You'll find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth.
Thanks, John. You heard it, folks. Take advantage of this opportunity and call now. 800-504-8790.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
Here's the Wall Street Business Report.
Stocks rose to records after several big companies delivered better than expected profits for the spring. The S&P 500 climbed 0.6% to top its all-time high set last week. The Dow leaped 1.8% a day after setting its own record, and the Nasdaq Composite adding 0.2%. United Health Group drove the market after reporting stronger results than expected, while smaller stocks jumped amid a widespread rally that broadened beyond the big tech stocks that led much of the year. The Dow was up 742 points to close at 40,954. The Nasdaq gaining 36 to 18,509. The S&P 500 added 36 points to 56.67. New York oil fell $1.15 to $80.76 per barrel.
Point weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here's tonight's forecast. Could see more evening thunderstorms like last night. Look for a low of 76. Tomorrow, partly cloudy skies to go with a 50% chance we get some thunder boomers, a high of 95. Looking ahead to the weekend, we'll have cooler temperatures, the highs in the upper 80s, but our rain chances hover between 50 and 60% each day. I'm Cal Moss with your on-point local weather.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
Grills, outdoor kitchens, fireplaces. Summer sizzle starts with Bart. This is 107 The Point. Ooh, you shouldn't have pressed that button. Oh. Now you get this.
This is Sports Talk with Phil Kornblut and Chris Bergen. Sports Talk is heard across the state on radio affiliates of the Sports Talk Media Network and is streaming live on SportsTalkSC.com, as well as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. The South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number to call in is 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now, here are Phil and Chris with tonight's edition of Sports Talk.
All right, welcome back, everybody, into Sports Talk on this Tuesday night. It's a Talking Tuesday here on Sports Talk. We got a lot to talk about. We continue here at SEC Media Days for 2024 in Big D in downtown Dallas. We're at the Omni Hotel, where we had 4 more coaches come through today, including the first ever appearance by a coach from Oklahoma, somebody very familiar to all of us in South Carolina, Brent Venables. He was in with the Oklahoma crowd today. We just had Eli Drinkwitz from Missouri come through as well. Also today we had Kirby Smart from Georgia and Josh Heupel from Tennessee. So a good group coming through today here, day 2, SEC Media Days in Dallas. Kirby Smart didn't have a whole lot to say about the arrests of his players, 25 of them, according to the AJC, since the tragedy of a couple of years ago in which 2 people were killed in a sort of a, I guess, well, they weren't really, maybe they were racing in that situation where the kids were killed, and that has spread through that program. And he was asked about it eventually. He was actually asked about it by a group of Georgia reporters. They do the same thing that we do with Shane Beamer. They get him aside before he makes the round, so he had some comments to them. Nobody in the big room asked him a question, and he was asked about it in the electronic room. And basically he said that he's disappointed this has happened, but one player has been kicked off the team. One player has been dismissed, a reserve defensive back who had a traffic violation against him, and he said that in some cases they are withholding NIL dollars from players who are arrested with these kind of offenses. But, Chris, I didn't, and maybe because he talked about it so much last year at the same event, really didn't sense from him a deep feeling of anger or that he needs to do something more than what they're doing. I didn't get a feeling from him that that he felt like there was a major problem going on with his program in this situation.
How he can honestly look at that and not think there's a major problem going on with his program. He talked to Josh sent us a clip today, and he was talking about the new college football video game that had come out, and he made a joke about how it's distributed now and that he's sort of lost touch with how things are. I think he's lost touch with this as well. He's got a culture problem with regards to this, and I would hope that he would be better. But 2.5 years later, we're still dealing with this. So this is just the way Georgia does things. I will give them some credit, and it's not something he's doing. He actually mentioned that one of their collectives is starting to withhold NIL money from these guys. And I think that's the first place you hit them is in the wallet. And maybe also you take away the vehicles that they're driving that causes them to get out and run at high rates of speed. The last couple of arrests we've seen, you had a young man in a Porsche, you had another one in a Dodge Challenger. I mean, you've got sports cars these young men are getting, and obviously they're going to want to drive fast, as all teenagers do. But sooner or later, Kirby's got to step up and make a statement and suspend some of these kids, because whatever they're trying to do internally, and then I hear Brent Venables talking about he's had 2 kids with DUI arrests over the offseason, and they're handling it internally, which to me, unless something changes, means they're not going to do a whole lot of anything to these kids. And we're just raising a group of athletes now that believe they are above the law and have no consequences for any actions. And Kirby Smart's remarks I wish it had been better. It didn't surprise me, though. I mean, we see who Kirby Smart is with the way he's not handled this for 2 years.
Which is, like you said, disappointing. Because he's such a good coach. He's obviously an excellent coach, excellent recruiter, and football-wise, culture-wise, he's built a tremendous program at Georgia. But this other thing just continues to hover over him, and you think you've kind of got it under control. At least it appears to be the case, and then it breaks out once again. And, it's an embarrassment, I would say, to the University of Georgia, to that administration, into the football program. But they don't seem to be too bothered about it, and their fans don't seem to be too bothered about it. They get more bothered. They get more lathered up at the people who report on this stuff than the actual guys who are committing the crime, so to speak. So, just hopefully nobody's going to be hurt in the future with Georgia if this continues. So that was a little bit about what Kirby Smart had to say. Obviously, they're going to have an excellent football team again this year. They're going to be right there in the mix. I think Missouri's going to have a very good team again this year. Plus, their schedule sets up nicely for them. They've got a chance to get off to a big start with the front part of their schedule. They've got one of the best quarterbacks in the league returning, maybe the best receiver in the league, or one of the top 2 or 3 returning. If they successfully replace a 1,600-yard rusher from last season, then that offense will be cooking once again. They got enough coming back on defense to be pretty good there as well, because they improved a lot on defense last season. And then Oklahoma, Oklahoma is not being talked about among the elite coming in to this league. I do find it funny, and I have found it funny over the last couple of years, ever since it was announced that Texas and Oklahoma were coming in, and we'd have these events like this, and, the media raised on SEC football, and they believe there's nothing bigger or badder than SEC football, and they asked questions of the Oklahoma today and Texas to come, but they asked, questions of these folks about, what do you expect? How do you think it's going to feel to play at LSU, or how do you think it's going to feel to play at Alabama? And I'm like, are you people kidding me? I mean, you're talking Oklahoma and Texas. We're talking 2 of the biggest brands in the history of college football. I was just going through Oklahoma's numbers. 700 wins. Since 1946. That's the most in the country. 7 national championships, 50 conference championships, 127 All-Americans. I mean, I think Oklahoma knows how to walk into Bryant-Denny or Baton Rouge or wherever, and they have an 80,000-seat stadium themselves. It's not like they're playing in a backyard somewhere and just tossing the football around. I get the homeboy rooting aspect of the media that's covered the SEC all these years, and they can't see outside their cocoon. But there are some other good football programs around the country, and you got two of them coming in. So don't look down your nose at Oklahoma. Now, this Oklahoma team this year with a new quarterback, a freshman quarterback, redshirt freshman quarterback, they've got to start over in that capacity. They've got some areas of concern in terms of returning starters and experience that they're going to have to deal with this year's team. So, but it is Oklahoma. They did have a 10-win season last year after winning 6 in Venable's first year. So they took a nice step forward, and we'll see what they do this coming season. And then,
do you think you saw the two teams that'll play for the SEC championship today?
Well, are you referring to Georgia and Tennessee?
I don't know, or Oklahoma.
Well, I don't think Oklahoma. I'm not.
Missouri?
I would put Oklahoma. Missouri, I would think has a chance to be there. I don't think I'd put Oklahoma in that category. Certainly, I'd put Georgia. Georgia. Okay. Carson Beck is back at quarterback, and he's established. And they're running. Even though they lost their top 2 rushers from last season, they have the 2 Robinsons back, and they ran the ball a lot for him. They've got ETN now that his legal situation has been settled. They got him. They've got him coming in. He could be their top running back. Tennessee's got a lot of talent. They have a new quarterback, Nico Ia Maleva. Now I've been practicing this. Nico Ia Maleva. Nico.
We'll have to get used to it.
Yeah. Well, when you say Uyangalele, but Uyangalele is easy compared to this.
After you practice it. For a while.
So, he's a big kid. He's the kid that coming out of high school, it was reported he signed an $8 million NIL deal with Tennessee, you might recall. That's kind of quieted down, that kind of talk. That wasn't, brought up at all. But you got him at quarterback, and, he played in the bowl game for him last year when Joe Milton opted out, and he won MVP honors. They beat Iowa 35-0. They ran the ball pretty well that day, and he didn't have to throw it but for 151 yards. So they're going to be building around him, and they've got a very good offensive line. They're deep on their offensive line. They have now they've got to kind of rebuild that defense. Only 2 defensive starters are returning. So that's going to be the big question mark for Tennessee, is just how well they can rebuild this defense with the players they lost off of it last year. Tennessee will be right there. I would say if you're talking about SEC championship right now, though, you got to talk Georgia, you got to talk Texas, and I think you got to talk Alabama.
Ole Miss.
And maybe Ole Miss could sneak in there, and maybe LSU. I think that's probably the top group. Now, we'll see what happens with Oklahoma and this young quarterback. The quarterback they've got is a guy that was the Gatorade National Player of the Year coming out of high school. So he's got a lot of talent, just doesn't have experience. Jackson Arnold, he was a guy who also had to step in and start at quarterback in their bowl game last year and did a good job. So we'll see. Again, I just think Oklahoma's got a few too many holes to fill to be right there in the championship mix his first year.
I thought you hit on a really interesting point in your recap of what Kirby Smart had to say today about Georgia that we hardly ever talk about with them, because you just assume they grow offensive linemen on trees. And he talked about that maybe one of the areas where they don't have quite the depth that they've had in the past. And you wonder, with the way Georgia runs its offense, tight end oriented, run the football, just possess it, and then let their defense, much like Clemson did at the tail end of the year, let their defense make sure you can't score enough to beat them.
Yeah.
You wonder if the lack of depth on the offensive line might be a major factor for Georgia this year.
It could be. I mean, he said they're talented on the offensive line, but they just don't have the depth. They've got 4 offensive line starters coming back. 14 starters total, but he pointed out, he's the one that brought it up and said we just don't have the depth on the offensive line that they've had in the past. So their defense is going to be very good once again. Smell Munden is back at linebacker. Of course, he's one of those guys that has a traffic issue to deal with. Malachi Starks at safety. He's one of the best in the country. Their top 3 defensive linemen, tacklers, return. So they'll be very good on defense. That Clemson-Georgia game in Atlanta, that could be something along the lines of, with that defense that Clemson has, that could end up being something along the lines of a 17-10 or 14-10 sort of thing. It could be a very low-scoring game because of the 2 dominant defenses. So, all right.
Unless Clemson does what they did against Duke last year and turn it over 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And then it'll get out of hand. Yeah, either one of them. I mean,
Clemson's defense is capable of going in there and turning Georgia over as well. So it could be a very, low-scoring game. I think it will be a low-scoring game.
I would agree.
With those 2 defenses, I would say right now. Now, today at Clemson, they had a media outing for the assistant coaches and head coach Dabo Swinney, and our man Matt Smith was there to cover it all for us, and he joins us now as he's heading back down the hill from Clemson to the Low Country. So he had the pleasure of hanging out with Dabo Swinney and those boys today. And Smitty, welcome in. How are you?
I'm good, and I've enjoyed your coverage from SEC Media Days in Dallas, and I just think, the videos that you're putting out on YouTube, you need to go wide shot so we can see you in cowboy boots. I have not seen you in your boots.
Well, I tell you, here's the thing about that. We're trying to be new age here. We're trying to hit the YouTube and the video circle as well, and I get that, and it's all good. It's actually a little easier, I think, than writing a review of every team. But I don't know how y'all feel when you see yourself on video from on a camera on video. But I mean, every time I look at myself, I realize that radio is a perfect place for me, because I don't think the television does me justice. I don't think the video really does me justice. That's why I think radio is probably my best spot. Heard but not seen.
I'm waiting to see you break out your Stetson. Did you get one like all the players have? Did you get a
Stetson hat? No, they didn't give me one of those. Those things are expensive, man.
Yeah, I know they are.
Those things are pricey. Back to Smitty, though, with Clemson today, Dabo Swinney, was his typical upbeat, everything is positive, glass overflowing, full kind of guy today?
Well, he was for a great portion of the 1 hour and 5 minutes that he spoke today. It had an intermission, and you missed some of it, but it was lengthy today. But he certainly was upbeat about a lot of things. I would say Coach Swinney today was the most positive. If you were talking about where he was most excited, it was about Antonio Williams' return. He even said the wide receiver position. He made a point of saying there's 10 scholarship players now there. And he said one place they have to improve is playmaking at the wide receiver position, but he seemed confident that was going to happen. And Exhibit A and B is the health, or being a healthy Antonio Williams. The fact that he has continued to develop, continued to grow, and Dabo Swinney could not lay enough superlatives at the feet of Antonio Williams and the player that he's becoming. So that's something for Clemson fans to watch for, because he was an exciting player when he was a freshman 2 seasons ago and very healthy. Also, Cade Klubnik, and you just mentioned, Corn, that opener with Georgia, it was almost as if Coach Swinney was talking to his own locker room, because he continued to talk about negative plays, and that's what Chris just said it. That's what killed them last year, frankly, in almost every one of their losses, and certainly in the opener against Duke, which was a shocker. And you cannot overcome mistakes against Georgia. It can't happen. So you can't have negative plays. So, but Dabo Swinney talked also highly of Cade Klubnik, and I thought made a good point that sounds like a good point we could make on shows just like ours, which is so often these highly touted players like Cade Klubnik come in, and the assumption is, if you use Dabo Swinney's phrase, they're going to be Johnny All-American their first year. But it doesn't work that way for everyone. Players are judged over the course of their career. Oftentimes you forget the struggles of a young player. Peyton Manning, you could go back, was not a superstar, was probably not all conference and a Heisman contender his first year starting. Sometimes it takes a little experience, and that's one of the things that Dabo Swinney said he anticipates is a big step forward for Cade Klubnik. All the usual suspects were mentioned. That defense is certainly going to be salty, one of the best nationwide. Dabo Swinney, you could tell that was the one place he didn't want to. He too many positives because those guys are getting enough ink already. As a matter of fact, Coach Sweeney took them to task that they need to be more consistent and better in the red zone. But I think everyone agrees that defense should be terrific under Wes Godwin this season. And Coach Sweeney was quite excited that EA Sports, the NCAA 25 game, he feels like accurately depicted his speed running down the hill in the pregame ceremony. He even sent a clip off to his old teammates at Alabama, including Antonio Langham. So he thinks they got that right. So he thinks the game is pretty realistic.
Well, when you look at Clemson for this coming season, I think Klubnik, how far he develops has got to be key. If he plays all season long like he did the fourth quarter in the bowl game, they're going to be just fine because he played with his hair on fire in that fourth quarter as they had to rally to win that game. I would have some concern about their offensive line going into this season. I still think there's some question marks there. Some places have to be settled, especially at center. I think that's a big question. Big question mark. Going into this season opener. I mean, the beautiful thing about playing a great team in your first game is you're going to learn a lot about your own team. You're going to see a lot of your warts, and you'll see a lot of your strengths as well, depending on how the game goes. So, now defensively, I think Clemson's defense will be as good as anybody in the country. When you can take a Peter Woods, Chris, and move him outside and play him at defensive end, and you got T.J. Parker on the other side, that tells you, A, you got some great depth in the middle because you can afford to move Woods outside, and B, it tells you, especially in the case of Woods, you got a special athlete at that size playing at defensive end.
It's almost comical how much talent they've got on that defensive side of the coin. I found it fascinating. Smitty touched on it. I looked it back up. Clemson in the red zone last year allowed scores on 29 opportunities. Team scored 24 times. 17 of them were touchdowns. And Smitty, I understand Coach wanting to look at which side of the coin is the better one. And he's talking to his defense, and he wants to slice them down a notch or two so they'll work hard. But I'm curious, and I wouldn't have a chance to go through and find out, but how many of those were set up where the offense puts them in a bad situation where they took over, first and goal with the 8 and had to try and stop them from scoring? I'm not so sure you can lay all the blame at the feet of the defense with regards to their red zone efficiency.
No, I think you have just made that was the point that I was about to come back and make sure we made was, Dabo Swinney hit on this as well. Clemson was ranked in the hundreds of fumbles lost. So they put their defense in bad positions all season long. Cade Klubnik threw 9 interceptions in his first year as a starter. He put the ball on the ground a few times, and we all remember it was just it was almost comical at times and tragic, a tragic comedy, the way that Clemson was turning the football over, either going in for a score or then setting their defense up, putting them in a bad position. So I think you're right on the money when you say that. And I know what Coach Sweeney is suggesting. He knows the defense is going to have to overcome those things because it's the stronger side of the unit. But the truth is what he needs Cade Klubnik to do against the better opponents especially is play clean football, and punts are okay because you've got such an elite defense that has such depth. And, Court, to your point about the offensive line where they have question marks, they do have question marks, and what Dabo Swinney's comment on the offensive line was they've got talent, they just need to evaluate which the best 5 are and the best 10 out of that talented group. But he's very confident. I'd say going into the season, anybody would tell you don't have to read Phil Steele to know that everybody would say Clemson needs to improve along the offensive line and they need to improve their playmaking at wide receiver. And Coach Sweeney kept hammering the point that there is talent in those two units. It's just up to the coaches now to decipher the best combination of players out of that talented group.
Well, I think a healthy Antonio Williams is a bonus for them. I think Adam Randall, they're counting on him to have a big year. Tyler Brown came out of nowhere last year, and he was a big-time contributor. They're counting on Bryant Westcoat, a freshman, to come in and impact them right away at wide receiver. You saw some Troy Stellato last year. If he can keep his hamstrings, his legs healthy, he can be a major contributor. Noble Johnson, he should be ready to go this coming season after being redshirted last year. So they've got players there. They've got They've got talent at wide receiver. So we'll see. We'll see if the Tigers are indeed better in that area. I tell you, one thing that's been lacking, Smitty, from the Clemson offense during this downturn, and it is a downturn for them based on where they were. When they were winning championships, they could strike deep and they could strike quickly, which is surprising to me under Garrett Riley because last year they did not strike quickly, and they didn't have the typical number of big plays down the field that you're used to from a Clemson offense.
I completely agree, and I think as Clemson moves forward, if Cade Klubnik, who we have seen, obviously, except for the spring game, is making the strides that Coach Sweeney is suggesting that he is. And that group of receivers you just mentioned, everyone would agree that when healthy, that's a talented group of receivers, that those things are going to be difference makers. And then on top of all of that, we've talked this long without mentioning Phil Maffa. And Phil Maffa is going to be key in that Clemson needs to stay ahead of the chains. Don't take a lot of sacks. Don't take a lot of negative plays in the run game. And if they're ahead of the chains, now you've got Wesco and Brown and Randall and Antonio Williams running down the seams, and Cade Klubnik has time because the defense has to play him honest. Those are the things they didn't do in 2023 that they need to do in 2024. And Dabo Sweeney would agree because he said the thing that's changed, not the recruiting. He said what has changed is we used to be great at making winning plays. We're still good, but we're not great. That's where you have to be elite. And you need to play ahead of the chains and play from ahead to do those things.
Yeah. Should mention another freshman receiver, T.J. Moore. I think they're expecting big things out of him. And let's don't forget Jake Brenningstool and what he can do for them at tight end and in improving Josh Sapp as well. So they've got some weapons there. I just think the whole key is how well this offensive line ends up playing this coming season, and we'll see what they're able to put together. I think it begins really at the center. They've been pretty steady there at center the last few seasons, but now they've got to start over there. We'll see if whether it's Trent Howard or Ryan Lithicum stepping in there and getting it done. Smitty, thank you, man. Safe travels back to the coast. Smitty. We will hear from Dabo Sweeney coming up after the break. We got more from coaches here at SEC Media Days as well, and we'll be back after this break. Don't go away.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here's tonight. Storms like last night, look for a low of 76. Tomorrow, partly cloudy skies to go with a 50% chance we get some thunder boomers, a high of 95. Looking ahead to the weekend, we'll have cooler temperatures, the highs in the upper 80s, but our rain chances hover between 50 and 60% each day. I'm Cal Moss with your On Point local weather.
Dave Ramsey here. Do you want your money to work for you rather than you working for your money? Go see my friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They're not a mega bank and have been serving the Midlands since 1936. Good old-fashioned customer service and free services. They'll look out for your financial well-being. With 14 locations, check them out today at palmettocitizens.org. Federally insured by the NCUA.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting the Republican National Convention is resuming with a focus on immigration and crime, with families impacted by violent crime slated to speak at the convention tonight. Immigration is central to former political brand that helped endear him to the GOP base when he began his first campaign in 2015. Senator Bob Menendez has been convicted of all charges at his corruption trial, including accepting bribes of gold and cash from 3 New Jersey businessmen and acting as a foreign agent for the Egyptian government. 2 co-defendants also were convicted on Tuesday. Prosecutors said the Democrat abused his power to protect allies from criminal investigations and enrich associates, including his wife. More details at srnnews.com.
This is Fran Halloran. Tune into my show, the Intentional Living Power Hour, on Thursday mornings from 9 to 10 for simple and practical financial coaching on The Point, 100.7 FM, 1470 AM, Columbia's local talk radio experience.
I sure like to brag about good local businesses. Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning is a great local biz. Josh and his team stress customer service as their top priority. Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning came out to my house. I had a toilet that wasn't working right, a garbage disposal that died right on time, told me everything they were going to do, and explained the price of each repair before even bringing in the tools. I knew exactly what I was getting and exactly what it would cost. Their prices are fair, their team is courteous and professional, plus they did a great job fixing what needed fixing in my home. I am very careful about making any recommendations, and I'm thrilled and confident to suggest you call Franklin Plumbing and Drain Cleaning for any plumbing needs. If it's a repair or to replace something, if it's that tankless water heater that you've always wanted to give you that endless hot water and save you some money. They unclog drain and sewer lines and so much more. Online, you'll find them at sc.com, or just give Josh and those great folks a phone call, 799-2222. That's 799-2222, and tell them you heard about them from here at The Point.
At Palmetto State Armory, we've dedicated ourselves to providing responsible citizens with the freedom to protect themselves and their loved ones. For over a decade, we've been manufacturing top-quality American-made components and assembling them in Columbia, South Carolina, so that you can purchase them directly from us, either in-store or online at PalmettoStateArmory.com. We are committed to offering you the best, most reliable equipment you can count on. We invest today and see what makes us different. Palmetto State Armory, American-made for life.
As we celebrate 10 fantastic years at Sweet Comfort Services, we're cooling you off with unbeatable deals on all SEER 2 and high-efficiency AC equipment. Hey Point family, mention this ad and get a thorough spring maintenance check from our expert non-commissioned techs for just $95 for your first system and a chill $45 each additional system. Look us up at sweethvac.com or call us at 331-8143. Celebrating a decade of keeping you cool and comfy. That's the Sweet Comfort promise.
Excuse me, can I interest you in an easy way to reduce your energy usage and save money at home?
Yeah.
Did you know Dominion Energy has an online store?
No. Where is this online store?
Online at EnergyWiseShop.com.
What's in it for me?
Huge discounts off Energy Star certified smart thermostats, advanced power strips.
Any hidden fees?
No. And you get free shipping with qualified orders.
I see EnergyWiseShop.com in my future. Thanks for the tip.
Certain restrictions apply.
Hi, this is Joel Lurie. I'm the host of Health Matters every Monday morning from 9 to 10 right here on 7 The Point. Join me as we talk about issues impacting your health and our community. It's Health Matters every Monday at 9 a.m. right here on The Point.
Back on Sports Talk here at SEC Media Days. Phil Kornblut, Chris Bergen back in Sardis, Josh Cohen back in Columbia. We'll take some phone calls as we move along. 888-825, South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number for you. No Josh Harris tonight from Darlington. He is taking a week of vacation. But to replace him at 7:35, MJ Ward will join us as we preview the Open, which begins on Thursday. He'll be across the pond, and he'll give us some of his thoughts on what to expect for the final major of the PGA season. That'll be coming up at 7:30. Have a couple of recruiting notes for you as well, but primarily Clemson football tonight with Dabo Swinney. We'll hear from a couple of the coaches here, and also we'll hear from Gamecock defensive tackle Alex Huntley. Now, going back to this Georgia story, since they came through today, and one of the issues discussed was about the arrests that have been made related to traffic incidents involving numerous Georgia players and allegations of racing and things like that. And one thing that Kirby Smart said to the media was that they were, as he put it, penalizing the players by not giving them their full NIL payments that they had agreed to. The story came out following that from On3, Pete Nakos, and he contacted the Georgia collective that handles this, Georgia's Classic City Collective, and he writes that they are fining players. Well, that's what Kirby said. The collective said that the players can have NIL payments deducted per their contracts. Over six figures have been withheld. So, Chris, apparently in their contracts, there's a there's a clause in there about behavior, and I guess if you are deemed to be behaving poorly, then they can withhold some of that NIL money to you. But then you had an interesting angle from something you read as well.
Yeah, CBS Sports came out with a situation that says, and I think this may be the only way you can correct some of these bad behavior across the country is start finding these kids, just like the NFL does, just like the NBA does, Major League Baseball. The problem is all those players are under contract to those teams and employees of said either the Players Association or the NFL, however you want to look at it. CBS Sports wrote a story, said, like any other contract, the parties are free to agree to anything that's not illegal. And it's not illegal for a business to fine a contractor for certain behavior. But doing things like this could cross the line into athletes being considered employees of the collective, since the collective is controlling their behavior. And if the directive to fine the athletes is coming from coaches or the school, that could also create a number of legal issues. Of course, for some reason, none of the universities, they want to stay away from classifying the kids as employees, even though they're paying them directly to go play. I don't see how they get around this, but this could be another issue that Georgia, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at this, may have stumbled upon, that NIL collectives, if they start finding or withholding money from these kids because they can't stay within the boundaries of the law, may actually start looking and deeming them as employees of said collective, and that could get them in a whole lot of trouble. Or at least they're not trouble, but a different avenue that college athletics, for whatever reason, appears not ready to deal with.
Yeah, one thing after another. The other thing about all this is I just can't get past the way this is being handled, the lack of transparency in all of this NIL. I mean, if you're a contributor, if you're a fan and you're contributing money, don't you want some transparency? Don't you kind of want to know where your money's going, how much money is being collected, who it's going to? I don't see how they can continue to operate behind a veil of secrecy here, because we don't know how much money these collectives are raising. We don't know how much money is going to an individual player. We don't know how much money they are being fined. These are all public institutions, right? These are all, well, not all of them, but I mean the ones we're talking about are public institutions. I guess the private schools can continue because they don't even have to report the salaries that they pay their employees at private schools. But these are public schools. And I'm just wondering when we're going to get to the point where transparency becomes an issue in this whole deal.
Well, if I'm paying, Clemson or South Carolina $100,000, and I'm a big basketball fan, and I want that money to go directly to Brad Brownell or Lamont Paris, and then those guys can feed it out however they need it. And then I find out, a year later that the majority of my money went to football, I'm going to be a little upset. But if they don't ever let you know that, I could give $100,000 and Ray Tanner and Graham Neff for the collectives could deem, what, our football program's struggling. We need that money more so than baseball does. Well, no, I earmarked it. I wanted to go to baseball. I mean, how do you have any control on that money once you signed? I just don't understand. And maybe that's the bigger problem, Phil, is we just don't understand how these collectives operate. And maybe that's the greater question. Hey, when I write a check for the University of South Carolina, the Garnet Trust, or the 110 Society at Clemson, how's my money funneled from when I hand you the check to said player?
I'll just say this. Hidden money is dangerous money.
I would agree with you.
Yeah. So mark that one down. At Clemson, of course, I mean, whatever NIL activity they have, they do a terrific job of keeping it quiet. The 110 Society, I do see their players on social media kind of panhandling for the money, asking people to send money. I think that's kind of embarrassing, if you ask me, to have your players do that on social media. But, I mean, I guess that's just another way of trying to raise the money. The ADs put out videos when all this was happening, and they would go on the big screens of their coliseums and their stadiums and beg for money, and I guess now they've just turned to the players and asked them to do the same thing. Whatever. I'll say this. It doesn't appear to be in any way hurting the appetite of the fan for college football, because Auburn has sold out their 63,000 season tickets. Clemson's going to sell all of theirs, 50-something thousand. South Carolina will sell all of theirs, 50-something thousand. I mean, all around the country, the appetite for college football remains very strong. So none of this business stuff is impacting the interest and desire to go to a game and to support your team. With that being said, Dabo Swinney met with the media today to give a preview of the upcoming August practice drills for the Tigers. That will begin on August the 1st. Of course, we'll hear from Sweeney again next week at ACC Media Days. But we give you a little taste of what's on the Tigers coach's mind at this point as he talks about Cade Klubnik, how hard he has worked and how much he has improved at this point getting ready for the 24 season.
Yeah, he did a great spring. He really did. And, we don't put a lot on the spring game, good or bad. It's just one of 15 days, and it's really the one day where you kind of everything is diluted. But we evaluate him on what we've seen, each and every day, and even this summer, part of it. He's in our eyes has taken the next step that we need to see to this point. Now it's got to go happen on the field. And that's what you want to see. And that's what it's all about. I just think that, he's a first-year starter. And we're just so quick to just, crucify people, if you will, if they're not some Johnny All-American the first time they step on the field. And if that was the standard for especially a quarterback, there's some of the best quarterbacks that have played college football and even in the NFL would have never happened. Right? Guys get better, and it's a developmental game. If you're made of the right stuff and you have the talent, you got to have the talent. But if you got the talent, you're made of the right stuff, the right type of character, football character, work ethic, will to improve, then you're going to get better. And he's got all that. And so we expect him to take another big step for us, and he's really not that far. The biggest thing is just to physically mature, continue to do that. I don't know if y'all saw him today, but he looks great. He's really just in a, as you should, as you go. I was telling Eric McLean that today. I was doing a podcast with him. He was not a very good first-year starter. He's a good player, but he wasn't a very good first-year starter. But by the time he left here, he was all conference, because he was made of the right stuff, and he got better. And that's what, you can look around the country this year and look at some of these quarterbacks, Bo Nix, who his brother's on our team. That's why he pops in my head. Caleb, this guy was a 6-year quarterback, and he finished second in the Heisman. And, his first couple of years, it was not many people writing good things about him. And, he's first-round draft pick. So, guys get better. And I think that, we just have to be careful when we are so quick to that's why I'm hesitant with young players, to just want to put too much on these guys because I know what's coming if they don't meet somebody else's expectations. And but I'm proud of him, man. He's really worked his tail off physically. He's matured. The biggest thing for him is just, minimizing the negative plays. Just too many negative plays last year as a first-year starter. And what I mean by that, well, he had too many fumbles. Just balls on the ground. He took too many TFLs, tackles for loss, that shouldn't have been a tackle for loss. He took too many sacks on him. And so those are things that you want to see him take a big step forward this year as a second-year starter. I think we will. So we're gonna find out real quick in that opener. But he's worked hard. He's really grown as a leader, and we're excited about where he is to this point. And we got to go to work, man. Everybody's got a lot to prove, and he's one of them for sure.
Yeah, but with Antonio Williams being sidelined most of the season last year, how have you seen him attack this coming season with that experience?
He's been relentless. If I could just pick one guy on this team that has transformed and gotten better in every area, it's Antonio. And that's, again, it's what I was alluding to earlier. The guy makes freshman All-American, and he's, that makes him the greatest thing ever. No, it doesn't. It just means he caught a few balls, made a few plays as a freshman. But, man, he had so much work to do to get better. And then last year, obviously, he's out. Whatever game 3, he's basically done for the year. So we were actually able to redshirt him. But man, he has grown and matured, and who he is today compared to who he was when he got here, it's not even close. He has become a leader. his work ethic, his spring practice, the practice habits that he displayed day in and day out, just his overall development. I mean, I'm just really proud of him. I mean, Grish has done an awesome job with him. You know, he's Grish's first recruiting class, if you will, was Adam and Antonio and Cole. That's his first recruiting group, and then and all those guys, you know, are on their way in different areas, and we think are poised to, all three of them, to really, really help this football team. And then we followed that up last year with, you know, Tyler and those guys. So I'm really proud of Antonio. He's kind of setting the tone for us in that room in this offseason. You know, he and Adam both.
Clemson turned down the ACC and ESPN's request to play South Carolina on Friday night. Did Graham ask you if you had an opinion on that? And do you ever foresee where you would want to play a game on Friday night in Death Valley?
Yeah, he did ask my opinion on that, and I was against it, you know, for several reasons. I said we'll do it. I'm happy to go do it in Columbia if that's what they want to do, but I was against it because I don't think it's what's best for Clemson. You know, I think sometimes we forget to do what's best for Clemson. You know, and I think it's not what's best for this town. It's not what's best for this community. This is not some big city, you know. The people in this town, they make their hay off of those Saturdays. And I think our students, you know, for them, you know, coming back here, you know, because they're off, and for them being able to come back on Friday after Thanksgiving with their family and be able to be here and create the type of atmosphere that we want, you know, that's kind of, and again, I've been here going on 22 years, so that's my perspective, you know, and what's best for our students, what's best for this town, you know, what's best for our fans, and what's best for recruiting. Because now that's usually a big official visit weekend for us, and to be able in a big recruiting weekend. And now you're trying to get recruits here to leave their homes on Thanksgiving. That's hard to do. And some of them are playing, you know, on Fridays. And so that's just that was my thoughts on it. I didn't, just my opinion. And Graham, I'm thankful that he supported that. And I'm glad it is where it is. But if they want us to go down there and play on Friday night next year, we'll do it. But you know, these Saturdays in the Valley are special, and they mean a lot to the fan base here. And again, if it was a normal week and we're in school and things like that, maybe it could have been a little bit of a different conversation. But you know, that wasn't something that I was for.
Coach, at this point in the summer, I'm wondering what you've seen out of your defensive front set. Just how good can that group of linebackers and defensive linemen be this year?
Well, we're going to find out. I mean, we got a lot of guys on that side of the ball that's got a little bit on their resume, but you know, it's to be determined. You know, I think they got a lot to prove. I mean, we had 2 freshman All-Americans last year in TJ and Peter, but you know, can they go build on that? You know, that neither one of them were elite last year. They have the ability to be great players, but they got to take another step this year. You know, there's a lot of things that they needed to improve upon, and they've worked really hard. And Coach Eason and Coach Rump are pushing those guys. I mean, we got guys. You know, Cape Hart, y'all saw him come on last year. Peyton Page, I'm proud of those guys and where they are and how they worked. But you know, there's a lot of guys that have a lot to prove, I think, up front, that are eager to get the opportunity. A guy like Trey Williams, who's been kind of up and down throughout his career, really just injuries. And, you know, for him to be able to have a full spring and now a full summer, you know, I think he's a guy that could make some noise. We got some dynamic young players that, you know, like a Steph Island-Green, a Vic Burley, who haven't played as much, that I think can come along and add the type of depth. Jaheim, Armand, Hoffler. I mean, we got a lot of guys, but you know, I think a bunch of them are still a work in progress. And certainly we know what we got in Barrett and Woodaz. I mean, those are 2 big time leaders for us, unbelievably committed guys. You know, Barrett came back, you know, to finish, And, we expect him to finish very well and to lead this group. Same thing with RJ. We've got a good little veteran group in RJ and Venables, and Koval's coming back. He's going to be a third-year guy to go along with some really young, talented guys. Got like Khalil and Kylan, and then we got some guys like Robert Billings and Kylan Webb that, didn't play as much last year, that are coming off of red shirts to mix in with that group.
All right, that's some of Dabo Sweeney. That's just a very little piece of Dabo Sweeney. He went over an hour today. So the whole thing is up on our website at SportsTalkSC.com. It's also in podcast form, SoundCloud, and Spotify and other podcast holding areas for us. So you can catch it there as well. So, I think Clemson is going to have the chance to do some big things this coming season. Offense will offense and the kicking game. I think punting is fine. Place kicking remains to be seen. We know what that was for the Tigers last year. That was drama every time they ran somebody out there. And again, Dabo Sweeney's never had a quarterback that he didn't think was among the best in the country. Sometimes he was proven right, and other times he's been a little bit out of his lane in playing up his quarterback. We'll see if Klubnik's the answer. This is the year for Klubnik. I mean, he was a first-year starter last year, but he played a lot the year before. So he's been in the program for a while, and second year with the same offensive coordinator. That's got to help. So, I mean, it's either Klubnik or bust because they got nobody behind him who's ready to step in and be the guy at this point.
And props to Dabo, too. And I mentioned this last week when we got back and I'd seen the story on vacation that he told ESPN what they could do with the idea of moving the Carolina game to Black Friday. I hope Shane Beamer and USC would do the same thing next year. That game does not need to be played on Black Friday for a lot of reasons. And Dabo laid out a lot of them. And he missed, he talked about recruiting, but he missed on one of the biggest reasons why. That's one of the biggest and most sacred weekends in high school football in our state. It's Upper State, Lower State weekend. You want to kill high school football in South Carolina, play the Gamecocks and Tigers the same day. I mean, that can't happen. That just cannot happen. And I hope Shane Beamer and USC will take the same stance if they are asked by the SEC and ESPN to move that game and leave it on Saturday.
Well, South Carolina's apparently made it clear that they were willing to do it.
Yeah, and that's a mistake big time.
They were willing to do it. The colleges don't care about the high schools anymore, because those who are going to go to high school games are going to go to high school games, and those that are going to go to the college games will go there. I'm with you. I mean, the attention that would be lost would be huge on the high schools. They would lose an amazing amount of attention and focus and publicity. So
and fans.
I would hate
Phil,
to see
these are fans that would go to the Carolina Clemson game. Yep. But if you ask them, hey, I'm going to go watch Dillon and Lamar play, or Clemson, South Carolina, the high schools are going to lose out every time unless your son plays for one of the high schools.
Yeah, I agree. All right, we got to run to the break, and we'll come back with more. Baseball draft is over. Several more players with state ties were taken today. We'll go over that for you. And we'll also hear tonight from Alex Huntley, USC defensive tackle, his thoughts about his group, what's ahead for the Gamecocks this coming season, and some comments from Kirby Smart and NJ Ward on the British Open. Got all that coming your way here on Sports Talk. Back after the break.
This is Major Billy Downer with the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources. Boating season is right around the corner here in the Palmetto State. Make sure your registration sticker is up to date and you have a copy of your registration card on board your boat. For more information on boat registration and answers to common questions, visit dnr.sc.gov.
Relax this summer with a promotional rate on select travel purchases with your Founders Federal Credit Union credit card. Now through August 31st, get 6.99% APR for 6 months on qualifying purchases, including airfare, hotels, restaurants, and cruise lines. Don't let interest down this summer. Visit foundersfcu.com/travel to learn more. Not a Founders member yet? Founders has the financial tools you need and the personalized service you deserve. Stop by an office or visit foundersfcu.com to learn more about Founders and see if you qualify for membership. On March 1st, 2025, the promotional APR will revert to the effective APR as previously disclosed. Call 800-845-1644 for details about credit costs and terms. Membership qualification required.
I'm attorney Jim Corbett. That's the sound of a big hit on you and your car or truck. I've been an attorney for more than 30 years, helping people who get injured in car wrecks and truck wrecks. If you have serious injuries, call Jim Corbett, 803-765-2968, or email me at jim@jimcorbettattorney.com. That's CORBETT. I don't get paid unless I recover for you. Jim Corbett Attorney, for your best recovery from a big hit, 803-765-2968, or jim@jimcorbettattorney.com.
If you're looking to stay hydrated this summer, turn toward a Southern South Carolina watermelons. One slice is equivalent to a glass of water and is just as effective as sports drinks for hydration. If you don't believe us, you can ask the Palmetto State's top football teams. The SC Watermelon Association will be serving up slices after summer practice to keep our teams fueled and hydrated. Visit scwatermelon.org for all the details and look for ripe South Carolina watermelons in your hometown.
You've put in the work for your education. The extra early, extra late, extra work. That's because you understand opens doors to better pay, better opportunities, and a better you. Being educated about playing the lottery is no different. It helps you be a better player, one who knows when to play and when to take a rain check. The lottery's a game, so let's keep it fun. Learn more at sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.
Yeah, I just figured out why I feel so negative about myself when I see myself on the we're doing, Chris. It's because I'm just in the TV room that I'm sitting in, the electronic room. I'm just surrounded by all these beautiful people, these young whippersnapper TV reporters, men and women, like 1/4 my age. And they look like they're in the prime of life, and I look like death warmed over compared to them. So maybe the problem is I shouldn't be comparing myself to them. Maybe secretly they're comparing themselves to me. It'd be a scary thought on their end. The hour break.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
Grills, outdoor kitchens, fireplaces, summer sizzle starts with Bart. This is 107 The Point.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. Services increased protection of former President Trump in recent weeks due to intelligence suggesting a possible plot by Iran to attack the former president. Correspondent Bernie Bennett has more.
The Department of Homeland Security and Secret Service have expressed concerns to Trump's campaign about the Iranian plot. Since the killing of Iranian leader Qasem Soleimani in January 2020, Trump has been an increased target, but the specific threat has developed over the past few days. Two federal law enforcement sources said the Iranian plot is in no way connected to the attempted assassination of Trump by Thomas Crooks in Pennsylvania on Saturday. Bernie Bennett.
Meanwhile, the Secret Service is under fire from what Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas has repeatedly called a failure that allowed a gunman to fire several shots toward Donald Trump over the weekend, killing one rally-goer and grazing Trump in the ear. Correspondent Alana Durkin-Richer reports the motive for the Trump attack remains unclear.
The FBI has said it's investigating this as a potential act of domestic terrorism, but so far its investigation has turned up few clues about a potential ideology or motivation that could explain why this attack happened.
Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey has been convicted on all counts in his bribery trial. Menendez says he's innocent of the charges.
Obviously, I'm deeply disappointed by the jury's decision. I have every faith that the law and the facts did not sustain that decision and that we will be successful upon appeal.
Prosecutors said the Democrat abused his power to protect allies from criminal investigations and enrich associates, including his wife. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 742 points, the S&P up by 36 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Anyone with everyday aches and pains, I've got a question. What are you missing out on? Probably a lot. So let me tell you about Relief Factor. Relief Factor is a drug-free daily supplement that helps your body fight pain naturally. It doesn't just mask pain, it helps reduce or even eliminate it. In about 3 weeks, you'll discover what it's like to feel better. Go to relieffactor.com or call 1-800-4RELIEF and save on your first order. The number 4, Relief.
What does it take for organizations to triumph? It takes the trust of people like you. And that's why an estimated 14 million givers look for the ECFA seal. Over 2,700 leading ministries across the U.S. display ECFA seal, demonstrating that they live up to biblical standards of financial accountability, responsible governance, and trust. So next time you donate, look for the ECFA seal, a widely recognized symbol of trust. Visit ecfa.org/trust to learn more.
High five.
Singer Andress is apologizing for her singing of the national anthem at Major League Baseball's Home Run Derby.
Ingrid Andress was slammed on social media for her off-key version of the national anthem. She now says on Instagram she was drunk. Andress has apologized and says she's checking into a facility immediately to get the help she needs. Major League Baseball is not commenting, and Andress's representative says there is no additional comment. Andress has canceled her concerts except for 2 festival dates.
Correspondent Margie Zaraletta. Amazon Prime Day is here, and experts are reminding consumers of scams. Deception such as phony emails from people impersonating online retailers like Amazon are nothing new. But the Better Business Bureau says phishing attempts increase amid the heavy spending seen during significant sales events. Amazon's 2 days of discounts starts today. News and analysis at townhall.com.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here's tonight's forecast. Could see more evening thunderstorms like last night. Look for a low of tomorrow, partly cloudy skies to go with a 50% chance we get some thunder boomers, a high of 95. Looking ahead to the weekend, we'll have cooler temperatures, the highs in the upper 80s, but our rain chances hover between 50 and 60% each day. I'm Cal Moss with your On Point local weather.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
Grills, outdoor kitchens, fireplaces. Summer sizzle starts with Bart. This is 107 The Point. By the way, before we do what's supposed to happen here, thank you for pushing the button.
Welcome back to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. You can reach the guys with the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number, 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now back to Phil and Chris with the second hour of Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
Well, not that I really can't compete with the beautiful people in the TV room. Don't get me wrong. When I was talking about that as we hit the hour break, I mean, I really, if I wanted to dress up like these young people and put on the cologne and the perfume and all that kind of stuff and have my hair done for $150 instead of $12, things like that, I could hang with them,
Phil, are you saying you don't smell good? Is that why you need cologne?
I think I smell just fine. My Old Spice still works great after all these years.
All right, just making sure.
I just love the silhouette shot we have of you on our screen.
If you move over to the left or you're right, we'd see the skyline. It'd be nice.
Oh, you want to see the skyline of downtown Dallas?
Sure.
Can you see it back there?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. For those who are watching the old streameroo. Yeah, it's a beautiful downtown.
Yes, it is.
What's funny to me is a city this size. I mean, it's one of the biggest cities in the country, right? In the world.
Mm-hmm.
You drive downtown, they got Commerce Street and they got Franklin Street, and then you come to the primary downtown business street, and it's Main Street. Main Street, just like Latta. Downtown Latta has Main Street. Downtown Dillon has Main Street. Downtown Dallas, the major street that runs through the heart of the city, is called Main Street. I thought it might be like Lyndon Johnson Boulevard or,
right.
Name a Bush, George Bush Boulevard. Somebody famous, not just Main Street. So, anyway, little note there from being here in downtown D. Welcome back into Sports Talk. We are in Dallas. Day 2 is over for SEC Media Days. We had 4 coaches come through, including Georgia's Kirby Smart. We'll hear a little bit from him in just a moment. We had Georgia in today. We had Missouri in today. We had Oklahoma in today, and we had Tennessee in today. Interesting, because Josh Heupel has very strong ties to Oklahoma because he played at Oklahoma, right?
Correct.
I think he coached at Oklahoma as well. And interesting to watch Tennessee under Heupel because, he had a great season, his first season UCF. That was the year that they claimed to have won the national championship. And then they kind of slid record-wise. And then with Tennessee, had a great year last year, won 11 games, and had 2 years ago, had a great year, had the best offense in the country. Remember, they averaged 46 points. Hendon Hooker was the quarterback, averaged 46 points, 525 yards. They ran a play about every 12 seconds. Remember that? They were fantastic. Until they played the Gamecocks in Columbia. And Hooker gets hurt, and the Gamecocks just run up and down the field on them. And then they go 9-4, 4-4 last season. So that's a backslide for them. And you just wonder now, new quarterback, highly touted, can they recover and get back in the positive direction? I mean, they certainly feel like they can, but we'll see if like I said, at UCF, his first season was very good, but then the record was poorer each of the following seasons, and we'll see if that continues at Tennessee for this coming season. And now tomorrow we get Alabama, we get Mississippi State, we get Florida, and we get Texas in here tomorrow. So no Nick Saban, of course, new coach at Alabama, new coach at Mississippi State, a new team in Texas, and Billy Napier, who will have a lot of questions thrown at him, I would imagine. You got the rumors out there, reports out there that one of their transfer players, Cormani McClain, big-time cornerback and a transfer from Colorado. It was reported by a Florida type of media reporter type guy that he was transferring, but he had been kicked off the team. For a variety of indiscretions there within the program. And that has been denied now by his position coach and others that cover Florida, et cetera, et cetera. And so has the kid apparently put out a comment that he's not transferring, he's not leaving. I'm sure that'll be a hot topic item for Napier. And, of course, the lawsuit against him and the Florida program there, filed by the quarterback who's now at Georgia. I would imagine somebody will ask about that, but he will not be able to comment on that because of it's in litigation. It's a legal situation, so he'll be able to sidestep that one, I think, pretty quickly.
Well, and the one thing he will not be able to sidestep, Phil, is, and South Carolina talks about how difficult its schedule is, and it's hard. Georgia's schedule is very hard, but I'm not sure anybody in the SEC has a more difficult schedule than Florida. And this is probably the absolute worst time for Billy Napier to have a really hard schedule. Opened up with Miami, a game they almost have to win. They've got to win that opener because you get A&M in week 3. Then the middle of the season, the rest of the way, they go to Tennessee. They come home to host Kentucky. Of course, they've got Georgia in the cocktail game. They go to Texas. They come back for LSU at Ole Miss and go to Florida State. I mean, they could be sitting in pretty good shape to open up October and not win another game. And it wouldn't necessarily be their fault. It'd just be because they're playing better teams.
Look, everywhere you turn the SEC, everybody's got a tough stretch. And I pointed out, let's see here, where is it? Oklahoma. I pointed out one of the reasons you have to wonder about what their record's going to look like. Here is their stretch of SEC games. There's a couple of other games mixed in, but just their SEC stretch. So their first SEC game will be against Tennessee. Then they play Auburn. Then they play Texas. Then South Carolina's on the schedule. Then they have Ole Miss, Missouri, Alabama, and LSU. Yeah. I mean, you're not going to run and hide from those opponents. Oklahoma, they might lose. Let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the 8 league games. So, I mean, they could go 4-4 against that slate, or 3-5, unless they are really improve and stepping up. And this quarterback turns out to be very, very good for them, and they can turn it around and maybe win 6 out of 8. But they're going to take some lumps and some thumps in there. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah, UT got it a lot better and a lot easier from the SEC coming in than did Oklahoma. You compare those two schedules, and they're not really comparable. Texas got it a lot easier.
All right, we wrapped up the baseball draft today. No major damage done to South Carolina or Clemson with today's picks. The first off the board in the state today was in the 12th round. Alexander Meckley, right-hander from Coastal, went to the Nationals. Also in the 12th round, right-hander Evan Truitt from Charleston Southern went to the Mariners. In the 12th round, USC signee Carson Messina, right-hander, went to the Blue Jays. So both Messinas end up being picked. How proud can that family be? Have 2 boys picked in the same draft.
Pretty cool.
Huh? That's pretty sharp.
Cool.
Yeah, that's something you can only dream of if you're baseball parents. Winthrop right-hander Riley Hughes, 13th round to the Athletics. Hope I spelled that right. Rocco Reed, Clemson left-hander, 15th round to the D-backs. Wofford outfielder Marshall Toole, 15th round to the Yankees. Upstate right-hander Trent Hodgson to the Reds in the 17th round. Outfielder Ethan Wagner from P27 Academy in Lexington, 17th round to the Astros. And Brendan Lawson, shortstop from P27, 19th round to the Cardinals. So there you go. That's it from the state of South Carolina. We end up having a total of 24 players selected, players who have a connection to the state of South Carolina. So there you go with the story on the draft. Okay, Kirby Smart, let's hear from him, the Georgia head football coach. One of the coaches in today at SEC Media Days. And we pick it up with a question from an enterprising reporter in the electronic room. The question to Kirby Smart.
Hey, Coach. Michael Bronner, WNSP in Mobile. The AJC report said that there were 24 driving-related arrests and incidents surrounding Georgia football since that January 2023 tragedy. Why does this keep happening, and what are you specifically doing to address it?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is disappointed. Anytime you have a situation like that, you want your kids, your players, to make better decisions. And I always say you can't be outcome related, and I'm very disappointed in the outcomes, but I am very pleased with our process we've put in terms of education, driver safety, requiring defensive driving, education, talking about it, having leaders stand up and talk about it, bringing speakers in and talk about it, suspending players, dismissing players, which we've done. I don't know to this point any coach in college football that suspended a player for a driving citation. We have. And we've also dismissed players based on driving citations. Nobody's done that. So hopefully they get the idea and the information, but we have a really good locker room, and I feel really good about that. Like, I love the players we have. I love the locker room we have. We have good kids. We got 45 kids yesterday battling breast cancer golf tournament to raise money. So we got kids that go to Camp Sunshine, the entire team. We do a lot of good things, but not representative of what we want when they make mistakes like that.
Hey, Coach. Ben Bobick, Local 3 News in Chattanooga. Cole Spear is someone that's been in your program for a few years. When Malachi was in here, he sort of perked up when I brought him up, just how much of a leader he's grown into. And he talked about how excited he is to see the role he's going to step into for the team this year. Have you seen him grown into that leader, and what is that role maybe this year that you foresee him stepping into?
He's just such a hard worker. Everybody loves Cole. I mean, he's first of all, he's tough. He's physical. He plays on special teams. He might not be the most dominant wideout. He's not a guy that's just going to win off the line every time, but He gives you great work ethic day in and day out. He holds the standard high in that room. He started contributing more and more on special teams last year. He's been able to stay healthy. He's had some hamstring issues. He's a really fast guy, and that's his weapon on special teams is his speed. But I love working with Cole. He's another great example of, we talk about our locker room. I love our locker room. I love the culture we have of our kids, and he's indicative of that.
Coach, Steve Moulton, WZZN in Huntsville, Alabama. Coming out of spring, what do you like most about this team in particular, and what's your biggest question heading into the fall?
I don't know, Steve. Coming out of spring, I loved the practice environment, the competitive nature between the offense and defense, the battles we had on the field. Like the practices were very spirited, it seemed like, and I enjoy that. I think when you have good spirited practices, they get more out of them, and it doesn't feel like this mundane, boring work. So I really like that. As far as areas we got to work on, I mean, the depth at the defensive line, I don't think anybody in the country will tell you they got enough depth. I don't think we have enough depth. We don't have a great depth at offensive line, where years past we were probably 2 and 3 deep. Right now we have a very experienced offensive line, but we don't have a deep offensive line. So some of that's been attrition, some of that's been portal. You have to continue to create depth, because you don't know when it's going to glare its head within the season.
Okay, the thoughts of Kirby Smart from earlier today here at SEC Media Days. Georgia, no doubt, will be, if not number one, in the preseason poll, number 2. Most people still think right now they're the best team in the SEC going into this season. Of course, they open up against Clemson.
If they're not, who do you think is?
Well,
Texas?
I think that Alabama will get a bunch of votes. I think Texas will get a bunch of votes, yeah. I think Alabama, Texas will get a bunch of votes. But they open up against Clemson, of course, and that's not going to destroy either team's hopes for the postseason. But the winner will certainly be in a great spot. But now after they play Clemson and then they have a scrimmage with Tennessee Tech, they go to Kentucky and they go to Alabama. So 2 tough road games ahead after the first 2 games of the season for them. So we'll see what this Georgia team is able to do. We're going to hit the break here on Sports Talk and be back in just a moment. Talk a little Gamecock football as we hear from one of the senior leaders on the Gamecock defensive line, Alex Huntley. Who would have thought when he and Jordan Birch out of Hammond committed and signed the same year at South Carolina that it would be Huntley who'd have the more long-standing positive impact on the program than Jordan Birch? Tells you about hype and rankings and all that kind of nonsense. Back in just a moment.
There's a lot of things we take for granted in our lives. Your home's AC will run cool. Your drive-through coffee will be hot. And the car will start when it's time to take your kids to school. It's when things start thinking about who to call and where to turn. The good thing is, you can prepare for life's most difficult days by calling the Larry Lucas Agency today. Larry is a State Farm agent that has been taking care of people across South Carolina for more than 2 decades. You probably have insurance, but switching is easy, and bundling can save you hundreds or more. Most importantly, the Larry Lucas Agency can help you choose the protection you want at the price you want. All backed by South Carolina's #1 home and company. Visit LarryLucasAgency.com today or give Larry a call at 803-799-1998. Like a good neighbor, Larry Lucas State Farm is there.
Call Lawyer Lisa. Experience the difference with Lawyer Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa Hostetler-Brown. Helping an aging loved one arrange for their care can be one of the most difficult things you will ever do. Fortunately, you don't have to navigate this maze alone. Lawyer Lisa's knowledgeable life care team path. Visit lawyerlisa.com to see how we can help.
Call Lawyer Lisa. Experience the difference with Lawyer Lisa.
7511 St. Andrews Road, Irmo, South Carolina.
You're listening to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. We're back in a moment.
The South Carolina Education Lottery has a new rolling jackpot, and trust me, our state hasn't seen anything this big before.
How big? Harbortown Lighthouse big?
Bigger.
Bigger than the Ravenel Bridge?
Even bigger.
Not bigger than Table
This new rolling jackpot, Palmetto Cash 5, is officially too big to ignore. Palmetto Cash 5 draws nightly, so play today. Check if your numbers are winners in the Players Club app or at SCEducationLottery.com. Overall odds are 1 in 10. Top prize odds are 1 in 850,668.
George Bryant here with Tsunami Bar Sports, and wow, Tsunami Robbie, there is now an amazing technology that you can use when you train receiving large game without having to endure pain. Please explain.
George, that is the magic combination. I have 3 simple words to define that entire concept. Stimulation, annihilation. Regardless of your training goals, there is a level of stimulation that is optimal for your desired gains. Tsunami Bar's flexible bar technology meets these demands because the user determines the level of stimulation with the amount of speed and force they impart into the bar or training device.
Hey, this is Phil Kornbluth. The Tsunami Bar is a terrific training device, whether you're working on your fitness or your golf game. It's convenient, it's easy to use, and you won't feel beat up afterwards. Be sure to click on the digital ad on SportsTalkSC.com and get 5% off any order using promo code BB. Don't wait. Order today. Of course, we're aware of the All-Star game tonight down the road from us here in Dallas, over in Arlington. And some folks I know here are going to be heading over there for that. So this place is
Only
so
one
big.
worth
This
watching.
area is so big. Yeah, really. You know, one of the sad things about having this here, there are no fans. You know, this is not an attraction to the common fan here in Dallas. Haven't seen one fan waiting outside waving a Texas flag or an Oklahoma flag or a Mississippi State flag like you'd have in Hoover.
Wow.
Or you'd have, hundreds of fans waiting outside to get autographs of the coaches and the players.
You
All
said
right,
Alabama's tomorrow, right?
Alabama is tomorrow.
Wonder if
That
that'll
is
change.
correct.
But it's no Nick Saban, so maybe it won't.
Yeah. All right, Alex Huntley, USC defensive tackle. He was here with the Gamecock contingent yesterday, and of course they'll be counting on him to be a leader up front on that defensive line. Here is what he had to say to the South Carolina media. No, I take that back. This was from the electronic media room. Alex Huntley taking questions.
AP Stedham, AP and Kelly, as we say, it's syndicated radio. What needs to happen with the South Carolina defense to improve in the win total?
I think we have to play on Saturdays the way we've been practicing and preparing this offseason. I feel like the defense as a whole, we've got a lot of newcomers, a lot of transfers and young guys who have came in and they've helped the team tremendously. And so I think all we have to do is show the world what we know who we are and, just do it on Saturdays.
Left side. Kind of going off of that, what has given you confidence this offseason that you guys are primed for a bounce back year?
There's several things I'd say. First, depth. We got a lot of guys who came in who have put an immediate impact on our team, on our defense. And so that's something that obviously helps you in every aspect. I think last year didn't go the way anybody on the team wanted it. And I think we all came back from that with a real big chip on our shoulder, ready to work, ready to, just do what we got to do to win. Because that's the only thing on our minds right now is a win.
On the aisle, left side.
Britton Ross, OU Nightly. Has Coach Beamer kind of told you guys what playing at OU is like, and what are you kind of expecting that trip to Norman to be like?
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's touched on it too much. I feel like right now we're focused on game one, really just taking every game one at a time. But I do think the trip to be Norman will be exciting. It's a good school, a lot of history there, and so I think it'll be pretty fun.
Right side on the aisle.
Kennedy Wright with CBS 42. What was the decision making in staying in Columbia as opposed to jumping in the portal?
Yeah, being from Columbia, I think the people, the place, I love it. I originally am from Maryland, and when I moved to Columbia, they adopted me with open arms. And so it's kind of hard to leave a place that has everything you need and great people behind it, and that's just all saying without my teammates. Those are my brothers, I'll have a bond with them forever, and so I didn't want to just kind of leave them.
Front row.
Eric Bailey with the Tulsa World. Another Oklahoma-related question, Alex. Brent Venables is probably familiar in that part of the country. Can you talk a little bit about his defensive style and what you expect when you play an Oklahoma-based defense?
Yeah, I'd say they're going to be fast, aggressive, trying to fly around the field. You know, he's a coach with a lot of, I give him, aura, on the defense side of the ball. But he's a great coach, and so I expect, great things. But I just know that we're going to prepare how we prepare and see how it goes on Saturday.
On the aisle, right.
Dan Pack, ESPN 1067 in Auburn. Origins of the nickname Boogie.
Yeah. Before I could even remember, I know I used to crawl really fast, and my brother said, "Look at him, Boogie." And then I started playing football at about 4 years old. My mom said, "Go Boogie," and the rest is history.
On the aisle, in the back.
Courtney Mims, Pig Trail Nation. Rocket Sanders joining the program. What's he been like for you guys so far? Any stories of him joining the program? What's he been like?
Yeah, I mean, that's a dude who came in the building day one. You could see how much it means to him. His care factor is huge, and all he does is work. And I think he's great for a lot of guys to see a guy who came in with an already big name, already stats to his name, but he still didn't miss a beat in workouts. He grinds, and so I love having him on the team. I'm glad he came.
We'll go back to the front row here.
We got a chance to get to know Coach Beamer when he was at Oklahoma for a couple of years as an assistant, and we saw his energy, his vigor. We saw in a game where he headbutted guys with helmets, had to get stitches at halftime. Can you talk about his energy on the sideline, what he means to you as players when during games, and what he's like, what he brings to the team?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, y'all have seen it. He's a guy with high energy, high care, but I think a lot of things that people don't really talk about is passion and hunger. I think that those are the two things that I take from Coach Beamer, and I think a lot of the team takes from him. He really loves what he does, and he loves being able to coach us, and he wants it so bad, and I think we all do. And so being able to play for a coach like that, it's really easy to kind of fall in line because he has the same standards that we have. So he's a great coach. I'm lucky to be able to play for him.
Okay, there you go. Alex Huntley, right there in the middle of that Gamecock defense. I mean, I think, Chris, this has got the potential to be one of the best Gamecock defenses in many years.
Wow. And, I don't know that you're wrong on that. I'm just trying to think back to a dominant Carolina defense. I guess you'd have to go back to the Clowney, Stephon Gilmore, the Spurrier teams. They're really, really good on defense. I'm not sure they've had one that rivals some of those. So, yeah, I think you're right, especially at the linebacking position where that may be their strongest unit out there. So maybe you're right, and they just have to go out and prove it. It's one thing to look good on paper, and they certainly do. Now, can they translate that onto the field? I think so. I think they can be really good.
Yeah, 2017, just looking back at these last few years, 2017 was a good year defensively. They gave up under 21 points per game. Last year, 26.3. I think this defense should be right around 20 points per game. I'll be surprised if they're much above that based on the personnel. Back in a moment.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 100.
Here's tonight's forecast. Could see more evening thunderstorms like last night. Look for a low of 76. Tomorrow, partly cloudy skies to go with a 50% chance we get some thunder boomers, a high of 95. Looking ahead to the weekend, we'll have cooler temperatures, the highs in the upper 80s, but our rain chances hover between 50 and 60% each day. I'm Cal Moss with your On Point local weather.
Breathe fresh life into your home with Lake Murray Soft Wash. Our team specializes in power washing, soft washing, and restoration. From roof cleaning to wood and concrete washdowns, we've got you covered. For services that you can trust, call now 528-1996 or log on to LakeMurraySoftWash.com to make an appointment. We're not just professionals, we're your neighbors. Whether residential or commercial, Lake Murray Soft Wash sets the standard in cleaning. Embrace the sparkling difference today.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting federal law enforcement officials are warning of possible copycat attacks or retaliatory violence after the attempt on Donald Trump's life as a security detail surrounds the Republican nominee and President Biden. Independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has also received Secret Service protection. Severe storms in the Midwest have overtopped a dam in southern Illinois and left the Chicago area cleaning up. Officials say a reservoir dam failed near the Illinois community of Nashville. First responders tried Tuesday to ensure all 300 people in the evacuation zone got out safely. There are no reports of injuries there. National Weather Service employees at a suburban Chicago office had to Monday as storms swept through. More details at srnnews.com.
Summers are so special around the lake. The only thing that can make it more special is finally going ahead and getting your own new boat. There's never been a better time than now. Marine 360 has a great selection of 2024s, but they won't last forever. And here's why. Everything Brandon and Scott have in their inventory is available at or below invoice cost. And not because they're good guys, which they really are. I've known them a long time. And not because there's some gimmicky commercial like some guy hawking used cars. I don't do that. That's simply because the manufacturer's rebates from folks like Crest and Sea Hunt, well, they've never been better. So you win, but you need to get moving. As the season goes by, the selection will dwindle. So my suggestion, do your homework. Go online. Look at marine360sc.com. Make an appointment. Go see Brandon and Scott at Marine 360 right on Johnson Marino Road. Look at their showroom. Get a demo on the lake itself. This is the best boating value in years. Marine360sc.com or call them 749-2360. That's 749-2360, Marine 360.
Hey y'all, this is Ted from Flight Deck Restaurant. We'd like to invite you and your family to dine with us. We have a great menu that's sure to please your whole family. We have fresh cooked burgers, big juicy wings, blue plate menu featuring country cooking, oven baked hoagies, fresh crisp salads, authentic Greek food like gyros, souvlaki, and baklava. We also carry 20 different premium cheesecakes and pies. Flight Deck Restaurant also has an arcade with 30 different games like Star Wars, Batman, Skee-Ball, Bass Wheel, Pac-Man, Galaga, and so much more. Flight Deck, your favorite family restaurant. Thanks y'all and God bless.
Want to hear my success story? I'm Fran Halloran, the money coach. I'm celebrating a decade of partnering with The Point. It's one of the best decisions I ever made. I've used The Point to significantly grow my small business. It started with a meeting with Kevin Cohen. Do you own a small business? Are you on a limited budget? No problem. Reach out to Kev at 563-85 customized plan and start your journey to business growth with The Point today. Success is one call away. Take the leap.
Here's a shocker. It gets hot in South Carolina. Seems kind of crazy that if you got a home or you got a business, you're sick of the power companies controlling you, demanding rate increases every 6 months, sick of your power bill going up. You can't even pick your power company, but you can choose Broker Solar to give you some control over that bill. Solar panels are not free like some of these stupid yard signs say. These door knockers often, well, they're scam artists. Not Broker Solar. They don't go knocking on the doors. I want some incentive for our Point family listeners. So purchase a system from Broker Solar. Your first solar panel is free. Look, I'm not into scare tactics, but this is an election year, and the way things are going, well, maybe it's time to stop relying on the government or these power companies. Broker Solar offers you control. Solar can save you money. These solar batteries are amazing. What a huge difference they can make. Do your homework. Online, it's brokersolar.com, or just call Ken. I trust him. I really do. You can also. 807-7417. That's 807-7417.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Talk Media Network. Some recruiting notes coming up, and we'll try to maybe wrap things up with some phone calls in just a couple of minutes. 888-898-25 is the phone number. I want to remind you, you're still looking to get away for a summer vacation down at the beach. Make sure you call Jimmy Smith at James Smith Realty, Paulie's Vacation Rentals.com. Paulie's Island, a wonderful place. It's the place to be, one of the places to be at the beach. And Jimmy is the man that can put you in a great location, a house or a condominium to fit your size of your crowd and also the size of your budget. So just give Jimmy a call today at 843-237-4246. That's 843-237-4246. Online at pauliesvacationrentals.com. James Smith Real Estate. All right. take a break from the football talk for a couple of minutes because we've got the last of the majors. Gosh, they go by so quickly. The last of the majors beginning on Thursday. It is the Open. The commoners call it the British Open, but the sophisticates call it the Open. MJ Ward of Golf Today joining us here on Sports Talk. He'll be over there covering it for us and for his publication and for others. And we welcome MJ to Sports Talk once again. Good evening, sir.
Nice to talk with you, Phil. Just as an FYI, Phil, I have to tell people across the pond that there's no such thing as the U.S. Masters. It's just the Masters. Okay, so it's amazing how people sometimes don't really want to follow that ridiculous combination. But I try to educate people that it's the Masters and it's the PGA Championship, not the U.S. PGA. So enough of the school talk. Let's get down to business.
Gotcha. Tell us what we should be looking for in this one beginning on Thursday.
Well, I think what you've seen throughout the majors this year is that the top players, the ones who have been playing consistently, they've been in the mix constantly. Be curious to see Scheffler. You know, he's played a couple of times. He's had, I think, 2 top 10s in probably like 4 or 5 appearances at the Open. But he hasn't played since the Travelers. And, you know, Phil, people don't realize this. When you switch from playing in the States and, you know, you get on a plane and you're leaving temperatures in the 90s, let's say, which is not unheard of in the States or much of the States right now at the temperatures. And then you land in Glasgow. And, you know, people will say to you, well, did you bring your hoodie and did you bring your rain gear? And, you know, you really have to have an adjustment to that. That's something that's going to be interesting to see. I mean, my only question with a guy like Scheffler is, you know, are you prepared as good as he is? And there's no question. I mean, he's the world-ranked #1 player for obvious reasons. But adjusting to links golf is an adjustment. And, you know, you have to understand that when you're getting that kind of wind, the ball does not carry as much as it would say in the States, and you're subjected to what the ground conditions are. So you have to worry about when the ball touches the ground. I mean, I said this last week. The Scots are famous for saying that the game of golf only begins when the ball touches the turf. And there's a lot of things that can happen, you know, and you really need to have a real good game plan for how you're going to adjust to that. I think it was a major feat for a lot of guys who played in the Scottish Open last week at Renaissance, and then just to get adjusted. You know, the time difference, the way the ball's reacting, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I don't want to overdo it. I mean, Scotty Scheffler is a world-class player. He's very capable of playing elite-level golf wherever he happens to play. But I think preparation is a really big part of major championships, and the Open is one that you really have to be very keen about, you know, how you're going to move your way around the golf course. And, you know, it'd be good to see how these guys handle it when they come out of the box on Thursday.
Are there certain clubs you leave in your bag on this links course and with the conditions and, you know, what they'll be facing?
One thing you have to be mindful of, you know, the bunkers, to paraphrase a commercial in the States, it's like the Roach Motel. You go in, but you don't come out. Okay, so you have to be very careful about many of the bunkers that are on the golf course because usually the areas around the bunkers are closely mown, so any ball that is probably within 20 yards could easily find it, especially off the tee shot. So you have to be able to, you know, understand how much of the bounce of the ball will happen when the ball does land on the ground. So drivers, yes, you can attack the golf course, but you have to be smart about doing it. Truman sets up very easy for the first third of the round, and then the intensity meter starts to pick up when you start to get to the 7th hole. And of course, there's the world famous postage stamp hole. It's only 130 yards, but you're hitting from an elevated target to a perched green that literally is quite small, hence the name postage stamp. And I think one of the key holes that people will see is a hole called Railway, which is a long par 4. It's about almost 500 yards. And literally there is a railway that parallels the hole. And if you happen to miss the shot to the right, out of bounds is very much in play. And then you have the tenacious gorse, because if your ball gets stuck in that, it's literally you have to take a drop, take a penalty. So, like anything else at the Open, Phil, it all depends upon sometimes too when you played, because the weather can change very dramatically between morning and the afternoon tee times. So sometimes it's a benefit to go early, and then there's the flip side. Sometimes it's a benefit to go late. But to have Troon, you got to score early. If you score early, you're going to be out of the box with some momentum. If you don't score early, then you're going to be really having to fight for what you're going to be having to deal with probably the last 6 or 7 holes. Most of the back 9 is into the prevailing wind, so you're going to have to really demonstrate that you can golf your ball in order to shoot something of a decent score.
Visiting with MJ Ward. So I noticed with the tee times, the first 3 will go off at 6:35. That's game 1. I love how they identify the pairings by game 1, game 2, game 3, so forth and so on down through the list. So the first game goes off at 6:35, and the last one goes off at 4:27 p.m. Now, why the stretched out? It's 11 minutes between tee times, I guess, all the way through. But I mean, is that odd to be teeing off at 4:16?
Keep in mind, Phil, when you look at Scotland, a lot of people don't realize this. I mean, if you looked at a world map, Scotland is basically the equivalent of where Nova Scotia is. Okay, if you were going across the ocean, so sunlight lasts longer during this time of year. So, as a traditional thing at the Open Championship, it's preferred to have the players all start at the first hole, and then they end obviously at the 18th hole. Mm-hmm. But there's plenty of light. I mean, that's not going to be an issue. But like I said before, what can change is the wind and whatever Mother Nature is going to throw. The forecast right now looks like it's going to be a mixed bag. I mean, it's not unheard of to get spritzes of rain that could come through, but they can go quickly past. But you have to adjust to these things, and you're going to have to shape golf shots. Be honest with you, if there's any major for a veteran player, I mean, Tom Watson almost pulled it off in 2009. I mean, it would have been probably the most unbelievable sports story of all time that a 59-year-old could win the Open Championship 32 years later after he won it at Turnberry. So, when people talk about Tiger Woods, some of the older players, a lot of experience, they can play different shots. They don't have to worry about length per se. But one of the real tests, Phil, is going to be adjusting to the slower green speeds. I mean, the green speeds at Troon, they're probably not going to be much more than a 10 on a stimp meter. If you compared it to Augusta National, which is probably 13 and a half, maybe a little bit more. But the reality is, if you had green speeds too fast at the Open, there's the possibility that the balls can oscillate on the greens because of the wind. And they've had that happen where they've had to suspend play at the old course a couple of times when the wind speeds get really blowing. So you don't really see putting contests as much, but putting will be a challenge because American players have really grown accustomed to playing on greens that are really, really quick. The flip side of it is, you have to make sure that you put your ball in the right spot so that you can attack accordingly. And so much of what goes on with the Open is getting in the proper position in the fairway so that you can take advantage of whatever is going to be in front of you. And, if you look at people who can play well tee to green, Rory had a phenomenal week at the Scottish Open. He just was not helped by a putter that just didn't really make anywhere near as many putts. But he's on form. And it would not surprise me that we're back in the same question again of, how will he fare when he gets back into a contending role. So it's going to be a very interesting mix of young players that are coming up, people like Ludwig, who's played well all year. He did not finish strongly last week at the Scottish Open. Robert McIntyre just won the Scottish Open. He had won the Canadian Open. Be an interesting story to see if the Scotsman can pull off a daily double, winning the Scottish Open and then winning the Open Championship on back-to-back weeks. Be a lot of interesting storylines going on here because the Open, Phil, and I've said this to you guys before, the Open and the U.S. Open to me are the two most important championships, but the Open is really a global enterprise. There are people who have watched golf, and the Open has always been the center point of it if they're from South Africa or India or Korea. The Open Championship has always been the international one of note. And in many ways, I mean, we can thank Arnold Palmer for, bringing back to life the Open to being what you see today.
MJ, of the 9 times that Royal Troon has hosted the Open prior to this weekend, the winning score has been 10 or more under par 6 of those times. Do you anticipate, unless the weather just gets really, really nasty, probably have to shoot maybe, 12, 13 under par to win?
Yeah, I in today's pro game, unless wind conditions or serious things happen, to be below 10 under par, to hold these guys back, boy, that's really tough. I mean, they are that good. And here's the thing about links golf. Links golf lives with the weather. If the weather doesn't get involved and you really have little or no much wind, I mean, what Henrik Stenson did with 264, it was an incredible score. I mean, and then he beat out Phil Mickelson, I believe, by 3 shots. But both of them played great. Stenson shot 63 in the last round. So, yeah, you're going to have to stay close. I mean, I can't, when you have a golf course that plays pretty much easy for the first 6 holes, it would not surprise me that somebody is 4 under or 5 under when they step on the 7th tee. The question is, can they hold that score or go even lower for the remainder of the round? But the way pro golf is right now, 4 rounds, yeah, I mean, unless something really comes up, to hold these guys back, that's a tough nut to crack because they are that good. And the one thing about the R&A, when they set up a golf course, they're not caught up with this whole thing about we got to hold these guys back. But, if weather comes in, then it's a question of when did you tee off? I mean, I remember when Tiger won the first 2 legs of the Grand Slam in 2002 when he won at Augusta and he won at Bethpage. He was at Muirfield for the 3rd round, and I mean, he shot 81 and he was being blown out to sea. I mean, the weather just was horrific. I mean, he couldn't play. The next day after that, he shoots 65. So, things can happen, real quickly on an open course. And, they don't tell players, to, come on in if it starts to rain. I mean, they keep you out there, and you're going to have to make adjustments to everything that goes on when you play. And, it's famous that if you think the weather is bad, wait 5 minutes. It could get worse. Okay?
Yeah.
So you never can tell in an Open Championship how things will progress for players. And then sometimes it comes down to, Phil, did you get the good break at the right time or did you get the bad break at the wrong time? And those things can happen to players. Links courses are famous for that.
So if I continue to call it the British Open, am I considered an ugly American?
Well, they would probably consider you a barbarian, Phil, or a colonist. Okay, so, but I used to say the same thing. I mean, this is my 24th that I've covered or will cover. I'm flying over tonight to be there. It's a great championship. I will tell you this: anybody who's never been, the Village at the Open is like a Moroccan bazaar. They have everything. You could buy anything in that place. I mean, that they have, and it's a tremendous celebration of the game. And obviously, to be in Scotland, the home of golf, it's always special. This is the only major that's played outside, the U.S. And I said this last week on the show. To have the word "great" be put in front of your name, you have to win the Open Championship. If you don't win this, you're still good. You're just not great. Phil Mickelson changed the storyline on his career when he won at Muirfield in 2013. And to this day, I know Phil still believes that the 66 he shot that last day, probably the finest round of his life, and it really changed his career arc, even though he would win at Kiowa a few years after that. But still, to be great, you really need to demonstrate that you can play on that stage and handle what links golf is all about. All of the greats have won an Open Championship. I mean, you go through the list, those names are on that trophy. The Claret Jug is something to possess, and it's certainly going to be, some gentleman's going to hear from Martin Slumbers when they present it that they're the champion golfer of the year. It's a great opportunity for any golfer who's ever watched it. But I'll tell you, if anybody ever goes, it's one to always remember.
Well, we're glad you're going. We appreciate you being with us. We tell folks to follow you at Golf Today to read what you write, and we look forward to having you with us on Thursday and Friday. And safe travels over there.
Thanks, MJ.
Well, Phil, I'll make sure to tell them that you said it was the British Open, and if they have any complaints, they should just call you on your show, okay? So,
They can just look us up on YouTube and fire away.
Yes.
Yeah, more than
I'll
happy.
tell them if they can get through,
Yeah.
then you might have an audience with you, and you could give them the lowdown on what's the correct way to the terminology for the tournament. So I look forward to being there. It's always a pleasure to be with you guys.
You too, man. Thank you very much. Safe travels, MJ Ward.
Not to be.
He's amazing. Listening to MJ, his recollection, his ability to on a moment's notice, in the middle of speaking, just recall something in the golf history, what somebody shot a particular year or how they handled a particular course. It's mind-boggling.
Well, not to be that ugly American that you were referencing, but what do folks in England call the Open that's played here?
The U.S. Open.
Mm-hmm. So why can't we call the one they play over there the British Open?
Well, because
What's the
as my mentor and former boss, Don Williams, would tell you, that a person is identified or an event is identified by its name, by what it's called. And its name is the Open. The fact that, people like us might call it the British Open makes it incorrect. They call it the Open. That's their name, the Open. So if you don't call it the Open, you're being incorrect. So henceforth and forevermore, we shall refer to it
be called the Open.
As the Open. The Open Championship. All right, thank you, MJ. Look forward to your stuff over there. Got a couple of quick recruiting items. Of course, recruiting is kind of toned down a little bit while we wait for some guys to make their announcements, as folks are now starting to gear up for the season. Recruiting is brought to you by Seawells. They want us to remind you Gamecock fans out there, if you're looking for season game parking at Williams-Brice, Seawells will have space for you. They have space for you, but you better act quickly because it won't last forever. 803-771-7385, or you can email them at seawellscatering@gmail.com. They do permit tailgating, of course, on their property. They're also offering parking for the upcoming soccer match at Williams-Brice Stadium. Who's going to that? Josh, you going to that? Have you got your tickets? You heading over there for that?
I'll go for media.
The soccer match?
I'll go for Sports Talk, but I'm not paying for tickets.
No.
Didn't it sell out in like 4 hours?
I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
I'm sure it did. Now, Seawells never sells out of food, all right? So you need to get over to the delicious daily buffet, 11 to 2, tomorrow being Wednesday. Have we got the menu real quick?
Yeah, we do. Fried pork chops, baked flounder fillets, and lasagna. And I have a question. Thursday, honey barbecue and hot chicken wings, meatloaf, and then fried
meatloaf,
fried SWAI nuggets, hopefully that's I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is.
Let's look.
I don't know what that is. Yeah.
I think it's just a typo maybe.
Very best in the catering business, the good folks at Seawells will take care of your special event. 803-771-7385, online at SeawellsCateringSC.com. I do want to say the food here is fabulous. They serve us a great lunch. And here's the most important aspect of this whole week here, Chris.
The brisket.
From my seat in the electronic media room to the dining hall, I guess you would call it, where they're serving lunch, 14 steps. 14 steps.
You've measured it out. Nice.
Yeah, 14 steps, door to door. I can be there in a matter of seconds.
So I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's a type of fish. So.
Okay. What is it?
SWAI.
Sway?
I don't know. And Friday is not a roast beef Friday. It's a Thanksgiving Friday.
Turkey.
Yeah, carved turkey and cornbread dressing and fried chicken and then pulled pork. So, sounds good.
Nice. Get over to Seawells, 11 to 2. I'd be there if I weren't here or on vacation as I was. Got to get back to Seawells very, very soon. Just a couple of recruiting notes as we look at some things. Neither one of these is good for South Carolina. It's a couple of projections. Tom Loy from, I think he's 247. Yeah, he's at 247. he's come on board, and he is projecting Auburn to be the winner for Jared Smith out of Thompson High School in Alabaster, Alabama. Yeah, South Carolina recruited him very hard and did some really good things with him. But to pull a big-time, he's big-time recruit from the state of Alabama away from Auburn or Alabama, if they want him, if they go all in on a guy like that, that's very hard to do for a program where South Carolina is right now. Maybe one day South Carolina will be powerful enough to make a pull like that. But don't think that's going to happen here. And Tom Loy, another of the recruiting analysts, to jump on board Auburn there. And then it looks like Tennessee, another projection here. This is from On3, projecting safety Lagonza Hayward, another South Carolina target, projecting him to Tennessee. So that would be another big miss for South Carolina should that prevail. Looking ahead to what's coming up, 2 days away from Isaac Souls, the center from Louisville, making his announcement, South Carolina, Kentucky, or NC State. And he tweeted out yesterday that he had notified the schools of his decision. So maybe he asked, I think South Carolina, I have felt pretty good about South Carolina with him throughout.
I was going to ask you, I don't remember seeing a welcome home from Shane Beamer, though.
No, but maybe he asked, I don't know, maybe he asked Beamer not to put anything out.
Because it'd be obvious?
Be pretty obvious, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just thinking out loud. I'm just saying he might not be coming to South Carolina, but I know he likes them. He's been to South Carolina a good bit. Then there's Cortez Smith, offensive tackle out of Lilburn, Georgia, going on the 20th, which is what? Is that Saturday? South Carolina target. If they were to pull him, that'd be phenomenal for them, but hard to get him, I would say, away from Georgia. And then also on the 20th, Bryce Davis. Now the projections are been coming in for him to go to Clemson, but Georgia's still in the mix there, and also Duke is pretty strong with him as well. Family really likes the academic aspect of the Duke situation. All right, those are the ones that are coming up here in the next few days. We're keeping a close watch on. That's recruiting, brought to you by Seawell.
I got one thing, Phil. Somebody just called in, Ralph. I'm not sure where he called from. He says that if you want pork chops, you better get there early, because apparently he went last week and they sold out pretty quick.
No way.
Yeah.
About that.
Okay.
So
you've
just
been
a PSA.
forewarned.
Yep.
You've been forewarned. Chris, who you got tonight in the All-Star game? I got the Americans.
I was going to say, don't we always have to pick the American League? That's pretty obvious. I just enjoy an All-Star game that actually looks like the regular season game. That's why I'll watch some of the Major League Baseball All-Star games.
Yeah.
The rest of them I can't stomach.
Except they pulled the starters too soon. It used to be a rule that starters had to play at least 3 innings, but I think
The
they've done away with that.
fun part is get to your TV quickly to watch Skeens go against the top third of the AL order. That ought to be a lot of fun early.
All right, thanks for being with us, everybody. We've enjoyed it. We'll see you tomorrow.